Putin's dummy says British troops are fair game, triggering World War III hysteria. One of Vladimir Putin's closest allies has warned the North Atlantic Treaty Organization not to increase its support for the Ukrainian government, saying the alliance is actively pushing Russia towards a third world war. In a chilling warning to NATO, Vladimir Putin's top aide, Dmitry Medvedev, said Russia could strike targets inside Germany. The former Russian president went on a rant on Telegram, promising, mercilessly destroyed, British troops if they were sent to Ukraine. These remarks follow Defence Minister Grant Shapps' announcement that British military instructors will be sent to Ukraine. Rishi Sunak, from Westminster, quickly denied these claims, saying the institution had no such intentions. Medvedev wrote, one freshly minted cretin, the British Minister of Defence, decided to transfer English training courses for Ukrainian soldiers to the territory of Ukraine itself. That is, make your teachers fair game for our military. With complete certainty that they will be annihilated without mercy, in their new role as British NATO specialists rather than mercenaries. Medvedev also said that Russia would consider strikes on German factories to be fully consistent with international law, if Berlin decided to provide Ukraine with Taurus cruise missiles. In comparison to the UK's Storm Shadow, which was also provided to Kyiv, the Swedish-German air-launched cruise missile Taurus is a significant upgrade. Kyiv's use of Storm Shadows has been devastating. Just recently, at least one was used to hit the Russian Black Sea Fleet's headquarters in Sevastopol, Crimea. Ukraine claims that the attack, which caused part of the building to collapse, resulted in the deaths of 34 police officers. Although it is very similar to the British Storm Shadow, the Taurus has a striking range of about 210 miles. The fact that the Kyiv regime can strike at Russian territory in order to weaken the supply of our army, infuriated Medvedev. To that, he said, these idiots, NATO, are actively pushing us towards a third world war. Although Germany has thus far rejected Kyiv's request for Taurus missiles, there is growing support within Chancellor Olaf Scholz's Social Democratic Party for supplying the weapons. In light of the current state of the war in Ukraine, Yale University historian and expert on conflict in the bloodlands of Central and Eastern Europe Timothy Snyder recently penned an important essay. This report provides a nuanced examination of why the United States and NATO must maintain their backing for Ukraine's resistance to Russian aggression. A decisive victory for Ukraine, he argues, is the only thing that will bring about lasting peace and deter further aggression from Russia, and that calls for a negotiated settlement of the conflict are premature. In his own words, the Ukrainian people are fighting for the post-war legal order. They were able to absorb and turn back a Russian attack on their own, using only a small fraction of NATO military budgets and suffering no casualties from NATO members. By showing China how difficult offensive operations can be, the Ukrainians are reducing the likelihood of a war in the Pacific. Through his writings and speeches, including before the United Nations, Snyder has risen to prominence as a leading Western interpreter of the Russian invasion and the psyche of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Snyder provides a reasonable assessment of the state of the conventional war in Ukraine, but he is too quick to rule out the use of nuclear weapons by Russia. According to him, a more robust Ukrainian conventional military offensive will actually make nuclear war less likely by demonstrating that nuclear blackmail need not work. He also claims that the argument that Russia could escalate is a triumph of Russian propaganda. According to Snyder's, and others, reasoning, the United States and NATO are hampered in their efforts to counter Russian defenses in eastern and southern Ukraine because of analysis paralysis, which has led to unnecessary concern about escalation and prevented timely increases in weapons like longer-range missiles and combat aircraft. 1. From this vantage point, despite Russian nuclear coercive diplomacy, the United States and NATO should swiftly provide as much additional support as possible to enable a decisive Ukrainian military victory. According to this line of thinking, Kiev can exact some measure of revenge on Russia for the damage it has done to Ukrainian forces and civilian infrastructure by using deep strike systems and information networks provided by Ukraine's allies to attack strategic targets inside Russia, such as command control systems, logistics, and military bases and installations. 2. We have three major concerns about this optimism regarding nuclear risk, which policymakers, analysts, and media commentators should raise loudly. When it comes to nuclear deterrence and escalation, the United States and NATO cannot and should not assume that Russian reasoning will mirror that of Western powers. 3. Second, escalation need not be the result of premeditated strategy. It is possible that unanticipated events could cause an escalation to the point of crossing the nuclear threshold. Third, the strategic and policy victories achieved by Ukraine and NATO so far in this war should not be undervalued. These successes have been achieved without triggering a nuclear escalation.